Hi, hi, and welcome to the AI Digest. My name is Joaquin Melara, and with me today is Debby Kruzic. Kruzic?
Kruzic, Kruzic.
Kruzic. Okay, pardon. Yeah, I think you're one of the many that I butchered the name of, so I apologize for that. But thank you for joining us today. And yeah, where are you calling in from?
Durango, Colorado.
And you're in the snowy part of Colorado, right? You're in the
Yes, we have snowing right now.
Um, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you do as the founder of TechDin. If you could give us a little bit of insight as to the kind of work that you do.
Okay. Well, TechDin is something I've been working on for, gosh, many years. It started off as a two-sided platform where you had one side vendors and one side end users, and it was a custom application that was built. And I pretty much scrapped that about 2, 3 years ago, and now it's a public site, and I use a knowledge base application to um, to have built what I created. So TechDin is strictly a tech-only knowledge base, and we focus on business technology. So we don't have any consumer tech, anything like that. So we're heavy in AI, automation, cloud, data analytics, document management, and security. So anything that an IT department is going to be utilizing is what we're focusing on, and that's who we reach out to and connect with our CIOs, CISOs, IT managers, and then the vendors that support them and sell products and services to them.
That sounds like quite a mouthful. And all alongside that, you have also been an independent business consultant. Um, as you said, around some of those areas that you're covering in your TechDin knowledge base, records and content management. Can you tell us a little bit about that kind of work and what you do as an
Sure.
independent consultant?
Sure. Well, I'll kind of give you a funny background in that when the whole scanning world and document imaging started, we had like the first CD-ROM writer in town, and it cost like $2,500. And so I've always been the one getting stuff really early, and sometimes I feel like I've started too early on things. But so I had a company that I still have my company, Records and Data Management, and we provided scanning services, archival services way back in the day, before even a lot of software got created. And so we would scan documents and we'd put them on CD-ROMs of all things and give them to the customers. And then as the software started coming about for document management, content management, then I started meeting a lot of people out there that were selling products, and I would handpick what I felt were good solutions and started becoming a reseller or a VAR, value added reseller for those products. So my company has sold products and supported them and installed them and implemented them. And most of our customers are federal or state, local governments, and then we have some private sector. But um, that's kind of what we do. But we go in. My role or my expertise is going into a company and seeing what they're doing and being able to kind of make sense of it all and then come up with recommendations for how they can streamline processes and improve the things they do there.
Yeah, I just have to give you a quick kudos. I mean, as you said, you may have been too early of an adopter, but nonetheless, I think it's really cool that you are a pioneer and that even through all of these technological changes, you've found a way to keep that edge of what is important and how do you keep adding value to an organization. But I think that you can speak on this from your experience. It doesn't matter what kind of technological revolution we go through, people remain more or less the same, and they still have the same kinds of problems, right?
Yes, it really is that way. I mean, no matter how great technologies, there's still processes and things that people have to do. I mean, they're right. All of us, we go everything that we do, every company we work for, every business we call on, they all are handling data and documents and all these things that they do. Their accounting systems, their inventory systems. I mean, it's everybody has some struggles there, and it's not like you can't just find one thing and just go and put it into all these companies and it miraculously fixes everything. It doesn't work that way.
What have you seen? Okay, yeah. So people fundamentally remain more or less the same, but what have you seen change over time?
For sure, the technology. When we started scanning, I mean, the scanners were slower than molasses, right? And and just the way the technology, especially in that realm, has been really, I think, really great stuff. You know, where you can do where the zonal OCR and where you can read the data on a page, and you can just do all these things that somebody was doing by paper. And we still use software like that now that's really great for classifying. And it doesn't have to just be paper either. I mean, if you think about invoices coming in electronically, they need to be read and, stuff taken off them and thrown in a database. And so all of that's been really valuable, I think, in the document management, records management world. The one piece that's still hard for everyone is records retention. I mean, I have not seen a lot of companies really be able to do that, even though they might have a records retention software, if you will. I think people just nobody wants to be the one that says you can delete that or destroy it, and I think it's really hard for people to do that final piece. If you think about the document management and data, who deletes that data, and who that still to me is an open one.
Why is that? Is it nobody wants to be responsible for throwing something out that might be important?
I think I think that's what it is. I mean, even though you have record retention schedules that you only need to keep this for 7 years, or people are afraid to do it, and so they don't incorporate that piece of software, that piece of technology that's readily available to do that final piece. And so they do all that up to that stage, and then they still have all this stuff out there. And then the thing people don't realize is that if you have it, it's discoverable. So by having that piece of data that you could have gotten rid of, you know, 2 years ago, now if somebody sues you or whatnot, it'll be found, and you have to show it because you didn't follow So there's all these things that why people keep the data and privacy, right?
Yeah.
Talk about privacy. Why are people keeping our data if we go to a business? Why is our data there that can be somebody can steal years from now when they could have just been gone with it? So that's a lot of things I see.
Yeah, that's true. It brings into the purview security concerns and access to information, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Anybody can break into a filing cabinet, but try breaking into some digital safe, it's much more difficult. Um,
Well, that, or why the data's in there, right? If somebody's taken down your address or your social or whatnot, even if it's in a database or it's on a piece of paper or a document. I mean, why are they keeping it past the time it's needed? Because they're only causing their own self risk as well. So those are the pieces that I've seen that people haven't
Figured
really
out yet.
done yet.
Let's talk about that records management aspect of your consulting. What do you do in terms of records management?
Pretty much just, if somebody wants to start doing records management, right, where they really want to have a records retention schedule and they want to have it utilized. There's a lot of pieces to that. There's coming up with the records retention schedule based on the kind of documents you hold and what business you're in. And then from that, once you have that built, you have to create policies and procedures that all the employees have to follow. So it's very known what you're going to do with those documents. And if you use an automated system, then you have the issue of being able to have the software automatically delete it for you, or if you have to do what's called legal holds, to get sued, you have to find all the documents and you have to. So there's lots of pieces to it, and that's the part that I think is still a lot of people have struggling with.
And what about knowledge-based construction?
And what do you mean by that? Just so I can make sure I answer properly.
In regards to your consulting practice, I mean, you go in for one thing and you tend to see, okay, this place is all turned upside down and there's multiple things that I can address. But I think one thing is how do you preserve what is already there and organize it? Second, how do you make sure you capture the knowledge of the employees and how do you make sure you structure things in a way that information is findable, right? Because it's useless if you just have a stack of documents that nobody can
Hmm.
parse through. But if you have findable information, it leads to better organizational performance. No.
Right. So normally, what I do is ask a lot of questions about what they're doing now. Do they have any databases already? Because normally people have file cabinets, or they're saving documents to a shared server or something. But the things that you'll find is they don't really have any naming conventions and really no order of how they're saving. So even though it's now electronic and it feels better that it's on a shared drive, sometimes the file cabinets are quicker because if people didn't name them and things like that. So that's really where the automation and the document management systems come into place, because they have the metadata and database behind them. So that's really kind of the process, is just to start figuring out what do they have or don't have yet, and what can be utilized. If they already have a database somewhere, it's possible that that can be used to speed things up and help them with their processes.
At which point do you enter into the phase of business process automation?
Usually it's the initial consulting to start putting together what they have, and then coming back with some recommendations and ideas. And that could be either software or just different pieces. So I kind of that's really it's really first thing is really just understanding what they have and talking to the end users, and really understanding what's there and or not there.
What kind of business process automation use cases can you kind of share with us to contextualize what kind of work that you do?
Oh, sure. Well, just basic. If you think about a government agency, right? There's so many departments. You might have HR, and you might have planning, and you might have police department. You might have just thinking about just a government that has all those different pieces, right? And normally, they're all different, using different software, and a lot of them, can't talk to each other. And so just start looking at all those pieces, and is there a way to use the database of one department with another, and try to get some uniformity. And so that's one of the big pieces. So I've dealt with a lot of government agencies, and um, it's really just trying to meet with every department. I've done records management one where you go into every single department and you document everything they have, right? What files they have, what databases they have, what software they have. Then you try to make all sense of it throughout the whole organization, so you can start seeing pieces. So that's how
And
I work.
once you cluster the patterns that you find, you find ways of consolidating, eliminating, and automating, right? In some ways.
In some ways, or recommending, what they might consider doing. Because it's more just giving them some ideas, and then they can take your suggestions. And if they want you to start looking for software, I mean, like things like that, like, well, that sounds like a good idea. What software could do those? Could
Mm.
do this, and then bringing in those kind of resources where they can be introduced to those type of things.
the first aspect, though, is always the paid discovery, sort of the audit of what exists today, right? Before you
Yes.
can make that recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um, Now, one of the things that I found particularly interesting in, the background that you have is the complex dance that you have to do managing the vendors that you work with, because you're going in as an individual consultant, but you're working with tooling and software, and you're making recommendations and procuring things and bringing them on board, to launch a system and get everybody trained on them. So can you tell us a little bit about that vendor management aspect?
Sure. So normally I have worked as either a consultant or I've actually am a value added reseller for different software. So what I mean by the being a reseller is that I can sell product X, and with that, I'm responsible for support and service and implementation and things like that. But I have a connection to them. So if I have a customer that I've met with and I learned about what they're doing, and I say, gosh, Joaquin's product X really fits them really well, then I would arrange like a demonstration, a proof of concept, so they can see it in action. So normally, what I always do is I do a proof of concept. I use the software that I know because I have to know it. I'm a reseller, so I have the knowledge, or we have the knowledge to do that, and then I can kind of set up a mock system so they can see their own documents and data in there and get a feel for the complexity and things like that. So that's how I would do that. And then with the vendors, it's really you know, the one thing I have tried not to do is I want to, not sell competing products or anything. I handpick the products that have unique solutions to them, and I feel that are superior and really have value, and that's what I recommend. So that's what I've done. I've handpicked what I want to resell and what I want to offer to my customers. And in the past, I've attended a lot of conferences and things because that's how I learn about the new solutions, right? And so I'll go, wow, this is one I hadn't heard of, and then try to work up with a vendor relationship there and all. So that's kind of how I've worked over the years.
Um, what's sort of the differences between the kind of organizations that you've worked with? I mean, I think we can segment them into two major categories, but I'm sure you can talk more on that and if there are any major differences between those categories. So, small and medium-sized businesses as well as government entities. What do you see are sort of the characteristics they hold?
Well, the government, definitely have their own stringent rules, not only about how they procure products, but about even working with vendors. If they allow you to have a be able to VPN or have be able to get into their systems. There's different things I've seen there. Some governments will not allow any vendor to ever come into their system un unwatched, if you will, or anything. And then other companies have been more like, well, no, we trust you. You signed this. We want you to be able to support us 24/7. So when you get into a product like that, I've seen both those. It's definitely much easier when you can take care of your customer, because you can go into their systems and do things. So that's really great when you have that level of a relationship. Um, so I've definitely seen that. Um, the small or medium businesses, I've seen some where they don't have the IT level. Most government agencies have an IT department, which does make it easier when you're implementing systems like this because they understand their systems. And when you talk about, what database and hardware and things that you need to have, that's very clear to them and all. But with some of the smaller companies or even medium companies I've worked with, they don't have that level of IT. So selling a system is more difficult all around, just because you can't talk the talk to to the level of what these systems require. They require networking and databases and hardware and storage and things like that. So that's probably the differences I've seen.
What a complex stance for the last 30 years of going into organizations, auditing them, figuring out how to cluster these patterns that you see, and then make recommendations and pluck the right solutions to bring into the premise. Um, how do you see this in the context of the world that we're in today? I mean, tools are advanced, people haven't changed. But how do you see that impacting your work?
um, I guess the main thing is just feeling competent enough to be able to, be at the level of the change that's all happening, right? Especially with AI and all that coming out and just being so everywhere right now. But even like with security and all, definitely, I think the tools that are coming out to help IT companies monitor, threats and things like that. I think those are very valuable because I've been some of my customers where, the database is down and the database is down, the systems are down, there's just no work around it. And so I think some of the tools coming out to help that not happening, right? So that a company never has their database go down, or they can just turn a switch and have a replicate of it back up. So I think the database issues definitely have taken a lot of companies off, off time where they can't really work, and so that's the disadvantage of everything being around a software or so on, because if they're down, everybody's down. So that, and then I think just the probably companies and especially IT departments and even the CFOs and all. I think they're being so bombarded right now with all of the media and the products coming out that they probably feeling that they should have to do something, but they really shouldn't until they really know what it's all about. Just like
Right.
me, I feel like I don't really understand it all to be able to talk intelligently to my customers, except to tell them don't do anything yet.
Yeah. Too much is happening. Every week something new comes out, and this is good, this is bad. You can't
Right.
keep track with the flurry of changes. Um, yeah, it's interesting that you're bringing the perspective of the C-suite. Um, obviously, if you've been able to work with government and small, medium-sized businesses as an independent agent, people trust you. You must have something about you that is honest and frank and to the point. Um, what do you think is the perspective of CIOs, CISOs, all the CXOs that you got in your contact list? What do you think their perspective is during these times of change?
I think they really, need to rely on their own staff, but also the consultants and the vendors that have the knowledge and that they can trust. I do feel that it's not all the vendor against the end user and salespeople are bad and things like that. But there really has to be a lot of trust, and the company and the agencies has to be the top of what you're trying to help with, right? There can't be any ulterior motives or anything, right? You really need to look at the full picture and the future too, right? And the one thing I've noticed that I've seen it, this it's hard to keep up on technology, right? And that's what I've been trying to do with my TechDin platform, is to have it so that I can myself and others have this place to go to that is showing all this. It's not making recommendations or anything. It's just trying to make sure you have the latest of everything, right? And I think that that's the piece that's going to have to be there, is the vendors are going to have to make sure that who's working for them are people that are at that caliber of knowledge and technical skills. They can't just be, salespeople. I truly believe that vendors shouldn't even have salespeople. They should all be technical salespeople. I mean,
Mm.
you just want, they need to be at that level because of the way the world is going. You need somebody that can understand what they're trying to sell or serve a customer, and they can't, the passing thing where you have the salesperson and then you have to turn it over to the technical sales and the customer has to wait, because this person didn't know enough. I mean, just get to the punch and bring them to a level of a person that can talk what they need to. That's where I think the vendors need to up their game a bit.
I yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is just spot on. There's just so much going on, and in a period where there's so much turbulent change, we don't need more layers of less communication. We need tighter feedback loops where we can talk to people and get the answers to what we need to understand and get the explanations. And to be able to build that trust, you need to have that level of intimacy, of engagement. I mean, I think that's a testimony of the work that you do, right? Like you represent yourself and you're like, I could do that. I've done that, you know. There's no, oh, let me go talk to this person, the engineer and my team. I can't give you an answer right now. So we can't make a deal, right? Um,
Yeah, they have to, it has to be to that level, I think, at this point in time. Back in the day, like I mentioned, when we were doing scanning and, you're talking about paper and things like that, there wasn't all of this technology and software and all of this complexity. So, you didn't need that level of skills, I guess you could say. But now I think people do. And um, that's, I think, I agree with you on that for sure.
what is something that you can share in your journey of entrepreneurship and gaining early adoption for the products and services that you're wheeling and dealing?
Um, Gosh, it's a good question. I would just think we kind of talked about it a little earlier today is the relationship building, attending conferences and hosting webinars or live seminars and things, and bringing people even just a small room so they can really, see what you're talking about. And there's not all this kind of salesy type stuff. I think that's probably where I was fortunate to get. And then also, like I have, I went to, get certifications on different things. I didn't go to college, but like I'm a certified records manager and a certified, all of these things that were very exclusive, or not exclusive, but pertaining to the industry that I'm in, document management, records management. So I took all those training and got those certifications. And I think that was very helpful. I know I've seen a lot of articles out about people saying, do you really need security certificates or things like that? And I know there's a lot of back and forth about our certificates, worth and so on. But I can't really talk to anything about except the ones that I did. But I do think that differentiated me. And then also, I've had, I remember doing demos for companies, and I bring my scanner and everything because I want them to see their documents on the screen and all. And that's how I got a customer that I still have, because the other vendors came in with three people, all suited up, didn't bring a scanner, didn't do anything. And there was like 15 people in this demo with all top managers, and I was the one that they could visualize what the technology was about. And that's kind of how I work.
That is insightful. Just show it. Just brass tacks, does it
Yeah.
work or not? And can you do it with my thing or not? And we can, what's a agreeable price that we can move forward with? And let's conclude this because it's a pain to seek and explore and, negotiate and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's the visual part. Somebody doesn't want to see samples of, company X's documents. They want to see their stuff on the screen. That's what they care about, or their data. And that's where I think back to the vendors, they need to up their game and work with companies and agencies on that level, you know.
Any word of advice for somebody taking the entrepreneurial journey at their sort of
Oh
stages?
gosh,
The dark path?
yes, I've made every mistake in the world. How's that? um,
Well, you I think that's good. I mean, you're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna make them once or twice or thrice or 4 times before you get the lesson, but, is there, like, a compass that you go to? Is there some way that you ground yourself in your intuition that you say, "Alright, I know there's something behind that wall, and I'm trying to get through that wall, and I'm trying these different tactics." Anything around that?
uh, I I don't know. I think that I really like being able to feel some control. And so, for example, like the records management thing, I have the knowledge and the skill, and I feel I understand that very well. So that that would be one thing is if you're selling something as an entrepreneur, do you really believe in your product, like you mentioned earlier too, when we talked about, are you passionate? Are you really enjoy what you're doing? That's number one. But then also when I built TechDin and was trying to build something, a two-sided platform, I had to go out and get developers and things like that. And that was just way out of my realm. And it's very difficult to do that because, I just wanted like just one little change, you had to, and everything that was being done in the back end was just way over my head. So that was one thing I was, a good learning experience. But now that I have this site that's a knowledge based site, all of the back end database technology is already built into this. So all of that I did back earlier, I don't have to deal with, and I can go in and do what I need to do. I don't have to ask somebody to do it for me. So that would be the one thing, but that was really kind of interesting learning experience was that development thing that's way out of my realm. And I
And
also feel, I'm sorry.
no, 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 please, I
I was just going to say, that back when I started this, some of these software, like the knowledge based software, probably didn't even exist yet. The way back to your question about technology, you used to think about 7 years ago, the only choice was to do custom development. But now
mm.
you come forward and you have all these companies that have built kind of a shell for you to be able to get to speed and do things that would have taken um, tons of hours. So that's something I've really do like seeing in technology is those type of solutions.
I like that you started out by saying you need to have some level of control. I think, I've tried my hand at coffee roasting and a few other, consumer good ventures, and when you don't have control over the marketing and the fulfillment of a promise, and you don't know how it all works together, you're in for a rude awakening, because, when you build the house on with things that aren't, solid pillars, it may just come crashing down on top of you when you're sleeping. Um, what about stepping on solid footing? Like, any thoughts on, like, how do you eliminate bad assumptions in your hypothesis for what it is that you're doing, and, how you collect your lessons and help that guide you?
um, can't think of anything specific except I read a lot. I definitely read a lot, and I really try to understand and ask questions um, of others. Right, just not make assumptions. I guess.
That's sort of the bit of how do you work within the knowledge supply chain, right? You have to acquire that knowledge before you can make an impact, right?
Right. And just, I mean, like we talked about relationships and things with the customers, you have to have the relationships with those that are helping you too. And be able to trust them. If you're going to use somebody to help you with a project, it's so important that's all together because you're risking your own. relationship with your customer, right? If you don't have your own ducks in a row with your suppliers and things.
How do you suss those out? That's a good question. How do you suss out bad apples from good apples?
I've just had relationship for a long time, with different people, and fortunately, I haven't had to go and look for different people since then. At the beginning, when I first started my business, I definitely had issues with mistrusting people and thinking they knew more than me and that. But at this time in my life, I'm pretty good judge of character and all. But no, I definitely at the beginning had issues because I was too nice and trustworthy, and that's one of our lessons learned, right?
Part of the journey. Um, okay, well, if there's anything else that you'd like to share, fortifying business operations through standard operating procedures, the importance of knowledge bases, why should you keep and upkeep record management practice? Anything you'd like to explore around that?
Not really. I just think the world of we are in right now with AI and data is definitely a big area, and I'll be looking into that of how I might be able to help others when I can talk intelligently myself about it. Because those are some of the things. Like years ago, there was the big RPA, the robotic process automation technology that came into play. And that's what a lot of the document management people, were pushing. It's going to automatically index for you and so on and so forth and do all these things. And I, I never really got wrapped around that very well. I thought it was too complex, more than it needed to be. And then now it almost sounds like that, that could go away with all the stuff you read about AI stuff. And so that to me is something I'll be watching.
Did the RPA land? Was it adopted, or did it kind of was hype in and
No, it's just there's the companies out there that have there's three big ones that I know of, that are huge companies that offer RPA solutions, and then you start seeing it in the document management systems themselves. They started saying we have an RPA solution, so it just was almost kind of like the AI is working now, right? Like everybody's going to do everything for you. You don't have to even think anymore, right? And
that's
that's
a
kind of how
self-driven?
this is
Yeah,
kind of the same thing where if you once you train the software that you click 4 times here and 5 times here and do this, that, and the other to do an invoice, then you've created that, and then from that point on you push one button and that system goes and does those 5 and 4 and stuff that you did. That's kind of the way I understand it. But when I tried to use some of those software, I was just like I couldn't even get to square one, and that's probably just because I don't have the brain for it. But that's kind of the idea, being that you have to you go into a company and say, well, what do you do, right? What does it take you to do your daily work? And they tell you all these things they have to do just to get one thing done, right? That's where the RPA was supposed to come in and kind of take
I
that
think
away.
I think that's a very insightful story. I mean, it doesn't matter how useful these tools may become if they're not human interfaceable, then they're not going to be adoptable, and if they're not adoptable, then who knows what's going to happen. But we need to make sure that these tools, because they are tools, at the end of the day, work hand in hand with the people that use them.
Right. That's kind of what I feel like. I feel if I can't learn it, it's
How
not
can
that
you teach us?
how
Yeah,
can I teach it, and how could I even explain it to somebody else if I can't even, make sense? I can't even articulate how to do it. And that's how I felt about that. I just was like, so I stayed away from that. I could have gone to sell a RPA solution. That's what I was looking at. Do I want to add a RPA solution to my arsenal? But I could not feel comfortable about it, so I didn't.
Okay. Well, Debbie, it's been a lovely time speaking with you, and I certainly learned a lot about the entrepreneur journey and, just making making the way through different stages of technology and seeing how things have changed over time. So I
Well, thank
appreciate
you so much for having me.